The diaper bag slipped from Blake Irwin's shoulder as he chased after his 3-year-old daughter Lily through the crowded mall, her giggles echoing off the high ceilings as she darted between shoppers with the boundless energy only toddlers possess. At 32, Blake was still adjusting to life as a single dad after his wife's death 18 months ago, constantly feeling like he was one step behind in a race he hadn't trained for. Lily Bug, slow down. He called, finally catching up to her near the food court, scooping her into his arms as she squealed with delight. You know Daddy can't keep up with you when you run like that. She patted his stubbled cheek with her small hand. You're slow, Daddy. That's because I'm old, he replied with a smile, though the exhaustion in his eyes told a different story, one of late nights working extra shifts at the construction site, of stretching every dollar to make rent, of trying to be both mother and father to a child who deserved the world. As he set Lily down at a food court table, he noticed the telltale wiggle that meant a diaper change was imminent. With a practiced sigh, he reached for the diaper bag just as Lily announced loudly, "Daddy, I'm wet." That's when he realized he'd left the diaper bag at the toy store where Lily had been eyeing a teddy bear they couldn't afford. "Oh, buddy," he muttered, scanning the food court with growing panic. The nearest family restroom was on the other side of the mall, and there was no way he could make it there and back without risking an accident. At the adjacent table, a woman in a tailored blazer looked up from her laptop, her coffee untouched beside a designer handbag that probably cost more than Blake's monthly rent. What caught Blake's attention, however, wasn't her obvious wealth but the diaper bag at her feet and the sleeping infant in the stroller beside her. Desperation overcoming pride, Blake approached her table. "Excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I left my daughter's diaper bag at a store, and I was wondering if you might have an extra diaper I could use." The woman looked up, and Blake was momentarily taken aback by her striking blue eyes and the subtle freckles across her nose that softened her otherwise polished appearance. She seemed surprised by the request but quickly recovered. "Of course," she said, reaching for her diaper bag. "I always pack extras. You never know when you'll need them." She smiled at Lily, who was now doing an unmistakable potty dance beside Blake. "Looks like it's an emergency." "You have no idea how much I appreciate this," Blake said, relief washing over him as she handed him a diaper and a small packet of wipes. "I'm Blake, by the way, and this is Lily." "Claire," she replied, "and this is Henry." She gestured to the sleeping baby. "He's 7 months old." Blake thanked her again before whisking Lily toward the family restroom. It was only when he was halfway there that he realized he hadn't asked for her last name or offered any way to repay her kindness. Inside the cramped family restroom, Blake fumbled with the diaper as Lily chatted incessantly about the toy she wanted and the ice cream she hoped to get later. As he worked, he couldn't help but think about Claire. There had been something in her eyes, a flicker of understanding, perhaps, or maybe just the universal solidarity of parenthood. When Blake and Lily returned to the food court, he was surprised to see Claire still there, now feeding her baby a bottle while she typed one-handed on her laptop. "Mission accomplished," he announced, approaching her table again. "Thank you for saving us. Can I buy you another coffee as a thank you?" Claire smiled, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "That's not necessary. I'm happy to help another parent in need. We've all been there." "I insist," Blake said. "It's the least I can do." After a moment's hesitation, Claire nodded. "Okay, but only if you and Lily join Henry and me. He doesn't provide the most stimulating conversation these days." They laughed, and Blake felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, the simple pleasure of adult conversation that wasn't about construction specifications or his daughter's preschool tuition. As Blake went to order their coffees, Claire Morgan watched him walk away, surprised by the unexpected encounter. At 34, she'd almost forgotten what it was like to interact with someone who didn't know her as the CEO of Morgan Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. She'd been coming to this mall regularly since Henry was born, finding it one of the few places she could work without being constantly interrupted by employees or investors. Claire looked down at Henry, who was contentedly drinking his bottle, his eyes starting to droop again. The past year had been a whirlwind, finalizing her divorce from Henry's father when she was 5 months pregnant, taking the company public, and adjusting to life as a single mother while managing a workforce of over 300 employees. She'd given up on dating, convinced that no man would be interested in a woman with her baggage and schedule. Yet, there was something refreshingly genuine about Blake. His worn jeans and faded t-shirt spoke of hard work, and the gentle way he handled his daughter revealed a man who prioritized love over luxury. Unlike the polished executives and wealthy investors who typically surrounded Claire, Blake seemed completely uninterested in impressing her a novel experience that she found surprisingly appealing. Blake returned with their coffees and a small cup of ice cream for Lily, who beamed at this unexpected treat. "I hope this is okay," Blake said, noticing Claire's raised eyebrow. "I probably shouldn't bribe her with sugar, but it's been a rough week." "No judgment here," Claire assured him. Sometimes survival is the only parenting goal for the day. They fell into easy conversation as Lily enjoyed her ice cream and Henry drifted back to sleep. Blake shared that he worked in construction management, but had been taking extra shifts as a laborer to make ends meet after his wife, Emma, had died in a car accident. Claire found herself admiring his resilience, the way he spoke of his struggles without self-pity, his focus always returning to Lily's well-being. When Claire mentioned that she worked in tech, Blake asked interested questions about her job without pressing for details, and she found herself deliberately vague, not ready to reveal her position. It was refreshing to have someone see her as just another parent, not as the powerful executive whose decisions impacted thousands of lives. "So what brings you to the mall on a Tuesday afternoon?" Blake asked. "Besides rescuing desperate dads, of course," Claire laughed. "Change of scenery." "I can work remotely sometimes, and Henry usually sleeps better with the background noise." "Lily was the same at that age," Blake replied. "I used to drive around the block for hours just so she'd nap. I think I could map every pothole in our neighborhood by memory." As their conversation continued, Claire felt herself relaxing in a way she rarely did anymore. There was an ease between them, a shared understanding of the joys and challenges of single parenthood. When Lily began to get restless, Blake checked his watch. "I should probably get this little monkey home for her own nap. Thank you again for the diaper save and the company." Claire felt a pang of disappointment as they prepared to leave. "It was my pleasure. Maybe we'll run into each other here again sometime." Blake hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "Or maybe we could make it less accidental. I'd love to get Henry and Lily together for a playdate. Kids their ages don't really play together, but parents their ages definitely need friends." The candidness of his request made Claire smile. She found herself giving him her personal number rather than her business line, something she rarely did. As Blake walked away, Lily's small hand in his, Claire watched them go with an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. For the first time since Henry was born, she allowed herself to wonder if there might be room in her life for something more than work and motherhood. 3 days later, Blake was kneeling in mud, trying to fix a leaky pipe under Mrs. Hernandez's kitchen sink. His regular construction job had been rained out, but rather than taking the day off, he'd picked up a few handyman jobs he'd been putting off. Every extra dollar helped, especially with Lily's preschool tuition coming due. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he awkwardly shifted to retrieve it, careful not to bang his head on the pipes. The message made him forget about the leak momentarily. "Henry and I are heading to Westside Park around 11 if you and Lily would like to join. Just casual, no pressure." Claire Blake stared at the screen, surprised by how happy the simple invitation made him. He hadn't texted Claire since exchanging numbers, worried about coming on too strong. Now she had reached out first, and the timing was perfect. He'd promised Lily a trip to the park anyway once he finished this job. He quickly typed a reply. "We'd love to. Should be done with work by 10:30. See you there," after finishing Mrs. Hernandez's sink and declining her offer of payment in homemade tamales. Though he accepted one to eat on the spot, they were too good to resist. Blake rushed home to change out of his work clothes and pick up Lily from his neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who watched her when he took odd jobs. "You look nice," Mrs. Patterson commented as Blake, freshly showered and wearing his least faded jeans, gathered Lily's things. "Hot date." Blake felt his cheeks warm. "Just meeting a new friend at the park, another parent, Mrs. Patterson, who had been his unofficial grandmother figure since he'd moved into the apartment building 5 years ago, gave him a knowing smile. "Well, it's about time you started getting out again. That little girl needs a mama, and you need someone to share your load." "It's not like that," Blake insisted, though the flutter in his stomach suggested otherwise. "We just met. She's probably way out of my league anyway." "Nonsense," Mrs. Patterson said, handing him Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit. "Any woman would be lucky to have a man who loves his daughter the way you love yours." Blake thanked her and hurried out, Lily skipping beside him, chattering excitedly about the swings at the park. As they walked the 8 blocks to Westside Park, Blake found himself unusually nervous. He hadn't been interested in anyone since Emma died, focusing all his energy on keeping his job and caring for Lily. The thought of opening himself up to potential rejection, or worse, getting involved with someone who might not understand his priorities, was daunting. When they arrived at the park, Blake spotted Claire immediately. She was sitting on a bench near the toddler playground, pushing Henry's stroller back and forth with one hand. Unlike at the mall, today she was dressed casually in jeans and a simple blue sweater that matched her eyes. Without the business attire, she looked younger, more approachable, though no less beautiful. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Lily asked as they approached. "That's my friend Claire and her baby Henry. Remember, we met them at the mall when they helped us with your diaper emergency." Lily, ever the social butterfly, ran ahead. "Hi, I'm Lily. I'm 3.5. Do you want to see me go down the big slide?" Claire laughed at Lily's direct approach. "I would love to see that." "Hi, Blake," she added, her smile warming as she met his eyes. "Hey," he replied, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "Thanks for the invitation. It's a perfect day for the park." As Lily raced off toward the slides, Blake sat beside Claire, peering into the stroller where Henry was awake but content, chewing on a teething toy. "He looks like you," Blake observed. "Same eyes," Claire smiled. "Everyone says that, though I see a lot of his father in him too." Her expression flickered slightly at the mention of Henry's father, but she quickly changed the subject. "How's the construction business? Slow right now." "Weather's been awful for outdoor work." Blake watched Lily climb the ladder to the slide. "I've been picking up handyman jobs to fill in. I actually just came from fixing a sink." "That's impressive," Claire said. "I can barely change a light bulb." "I'm sure you have other talents," Blake replied, then felt his face grow warm at how the comment might have sounded. "I mean, in your tech job, what exactly do you do?" Claire hesitated, and Blake noticed a slight tension in her shoulders. "I'm in management," she said finally. "Software development." Before Blake could ask for more details, Lily called from the top of the slide, demanding that both adults watch her dramatic descent. The moment passed, and they fell into easy conversation about their children, sharing stories and challenges as they took turns pushing swings and retrieving dropped toys. Blake couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed so much. There was something about Claire that put him at ease, despite their obvious differences. She was clearly educated and successful, while he had barely finished community college before Emma got pregnant with Lily. Yet she never made him feel inadequate or judged his circumstances. When Henry began to fuss, Claire lifted him from the stroller, and Blake was struck by the natural way she comforted her son, so different from the polished business persona she'd first presented at the mall. "He's probably hungry," Claire said. "I should feed him." "There's a picnic table in the shade over there," Blake suggested. "I packed some snacks for Lily. We could have a little impromptu picnic if you'd like," Claire smiled. "That sounds perfect." As they settled at the picnic table, Blake unpacked apple slices and crackers for Lily, while Claire prepared a bottle for Henry. There was something intimate about sharing this simple meal, watching their children, exchanging glances over Lily's elaborate stories about her preschool adventures. "So," Claire said as Henry contentedly drank his bottle, "you mentioned you're a single dad. If you don't mind me asking, how long has it been just you and Lily? Blake's expression grew more serious. About a year and a half now. Emma, my wife, was killed by a drunk driver. Lily was barely 2. Claire reached across the table and briefly touched his hand, her eyes full of genuine sympathy. I'm so sorry, Blake, that's unimaginably difficult. It's been tough, he admitted. But Lily gives me a reason to keep going every day. What about you? You mentioned Henry's father briefly. Claire shifted Henry to her shoulder for burping. I'm divorced. It was finalized before Henry was born. My ex-husband decided parenthood wasn't for him after all. Blake frowned. That's his loss. Henry seems like an amazing little guy. He is, Claire agreed, a protective note in her voice. Better to know now than later that his father wasn't committed. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, both watching Lily as she arranged her crackers in elaborate patterns before eating them. It's not easy doing this alone, Blake said finally, but I'm glad I ran into you at the mall. It's nice having someone who gets it. Claire's smile reached her eyes. I'm glad you forgot that diaper bag. The afternoon stretched on, neither of them seeming eager to end their time together. When Lily began to yawn, Blake reluctantly announced that they should head home for her nap. This was really nice, Claire said as they gathered their things. Maybe we could do it again sometime. I'd like that, Blake replied, surprising himself with how much he meant it. As they said their goodbyes, Blake felt Lily tugging on his sleeve. Daddy, she whispered loudly, I like Claire. She smells pretty and she laughs at your jokes. Blake caught Claire's amused expression and knew she'd overheard. Thanks for the review, Lily Bug, he said, ruffling her hair with embarrassment. Claire leaned down to Lily's level. I like you too, Lily, and I think your daddy is pretty funny. Walking home, with Lily eventually asking to be carried as her energy flagged, Blake found himself thinking about Claire's smile, the way she'd listened intently when he spoke, how naturally they'd fallen into conversation. For the first time since losing Emma, he allowed himself to imagine the possibility of letting someone new into their lives. Claire Morgan stared at the quarterly financial reports on her desk, but her mind kept wandering to the afternoon at the park. She'd spent less than 3 hours with Blake and Lily, yet she couldn't stop thinking about them the way Blake's eyes crinkled when he laughed, how patiently he addressed Lily's endless questions, the easy comfort of their conversation. A knock at her office door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called, straightening in her executive chair. Her assistant, Derek, entered with an apologetic expression. Sorry to bother you, Miss Morgan, but the team from Accelerate Ventures is here for the investment meeting. They're 10 minutes early. Claire glanced at her watch, surprised to find she'd lost track of time. Thank you, Derek. I'll be right there. As Derek left, Claire took a moment to compose herself, slipping back into CEO mode, focused, authoritative, decisive. This meeting could secure the funding they needed for their expansion into international markets, a move that would potentially double the company's value. She couldn't afford distractions, even if those distractions had the warmest brown eyes she'd ever seen. In the conference room, Claire greeted the venture capitalists with practiced confidence, guiding them through Morgan Innovation's latest projections. For 2 hours, she answered questions, presented data, and negotiated terms, her mind fully engaged in the complex dance of high-stakes business. When the meeting concluded successfully, with the investors agreeing to move forward, Claire's CFO, Marcus Bennett, gave her an appreciative nod. You were in rare form today. They didn't stand a chance. Claire smiled, feeling the familiar rush of professional accomplishment. They want to be part of what we're building as much as we want their money. It's a good partnership. As they walked back to her office, Marcus updated her on other company matters, ending with, Oh, and your ex called the office again. I told his assistant you were unavailable. Claire's good mood dimmed. What did Brandon want this time? Something about adjusting the visitation schedule. His assistant mentioned a business trip to Tokyo that conflicts with his weekend with Henry. Of course it does, Claire muttered. Despite repeatedly telling her ex-husband to contact her personal line for matters concerning Henry, Brandon insisted on calling her office, as if their son were just another business arrangement to be renegotiated at his convenience. Should I have Derek call him back? Marcus asked. Claire shook her head. No, I'll handle it. Thank you, Marcus. Alone in her office, Claire sank into her chair, the contrast between her morning with Blake and her afternoon of corporate maneuvering striking her forcefully. With Blake, she'd just been Claire a mother, a woman enjoying a sunny day at the park. Here, she was Miss Morgan, CEO, responsible for hundreds of employees and millions in revenue. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Her heart jumped when she saw it was from Blake. Lily hasn't stopped talking about her new friend Claire and baby Henry. Thanks for making her day and mine. Would you and Henry like to join us for dinner Friday? Nothing fancy, just spaghetti at our place. Claire found herself smiling at the simple invitation. Friday night was typically when she caught up on work, reviewing reports and preparing for the following week. But the thought of another evening alone in her expansive Lakeview condo, Henry asleep and only spreadsheets for company, suddenly seemed unbearably lonely. Before she could overthink it, Claire replied, "We'd love to." "What can we bring?" Blake's response came quickly. "Just yourselves." Lily's already planning to show Henry all her toys, though I've explained he's too little to play with most of them. Address is 1425 Oakwood Lane, Apt 3B. 6 o'clock okay, Claire stared at the address. Oakwood Lane was in a modest neighborhood across town, far from the upscale areas where most of her colleagues lived. She felt a momentary hesitation not about the neighborhood itself, but about the growing realization that there was a significant economic gap between them. Would that matter? Should it? Pushing aside her doubts, Claire texted back. 6 o'clock is perfect, looking forward to it. She set down her phone, feeling both excited and nervous about Friday night. There was also a nagging guilt about not being completely honest with Blake about her career. She deliberately downplayed her position, knowing from experience how people's behavior changed when they learned she was worth 8 figures on paper. With Brandon, her success had become a source of tension in their marriage. Though initially supportive of her career, he'd grown increasingly resentful as her star rose while his own investment firm struggled. By the time she became pregnant with Henry, their relationship had devolved into a competition rather than a partnership. Claire didn't want to repeat that pattern with Blake. He seemed genuinely content with his life despite its financial constraints, taking pride in his work and finding joy in simple pleasures like park outings with his daughter. Would knowing about her wealth and position change the way he saw her? Would it intimidate him or, worse, attract him for the wrong reasons? These questions followed Claire throughout the week as she navigated board meetings and development deadlines, all while preparing for Friday evening. By the time she strapped Henry into his car seat and programmed Blake's address into her GPS, she had decided to continue being vague about her work until she better understood where this friendship, or whatever it was becoming, might lead. Blake's apartment building was exactly as she'd expected. An older complex, well-maintained but showing its age, with children's bicycles chained to the railings and window boxes brightening some of the units. She found a parking spot for her Audi, which suddenly felt conspicuously luxurious, and gathered Henry and his diaper bag. As she approached Unit 3B, Claire felt an unexpected flutter of nerves. She smoothed her casual dress, deliberately chosen to be nice but not too expensive looking, and knocked. The door flew open to reveal Lily, beaming with excitement. "You came, Daddy, they're here, I told you they would come." Blake appeared behind his daughter, gently ushering her aside to let their guests enter. "Sorry about the welcome committee, she's been watching out the window for an hour." Claire stepped into a small but tidy apartment, immediately struck by how thoroughly it reflected Blake and Lily's personalities. Children's artwork decorated the refrigerator, well-worn furniture was arranged to maximize the limited space, and family photos adorned the walls. It was nothing like her minimalist condo with its designer furniture and expansive views, yet it felt instantly more welcoming. "Something smells amazing," Claire said, breathing in the aroma of garlic and tomatoes. "Daddy makes the best spaghetti sauce," Lily informed her seriously. "He puts secret ingredients in it." "The secret ingredient is time," Blake admitted with a smile. "It's been simmering all day," he gestured to the living room. "Make yourself comfortable. Can I get you something to drink? I have wine, beer, soda." "Wine would be lovely," Claire replied, settling Henry on a play mat Blake had thoughtfully set up. As Blake disappeared into the kitchen, Lily dropped to her knees beside Henry. "I brought some baby toys for Henry," she announced, presenting a basket of colorful plastic items. "These are from when I was a baby. Daddy says I don't need them anymore, but we saved them for when friends come over." Claire was touched by the gesture. "That's very thoughtful, Lily. Henry will love playing with them." Blake returned with a glass of wine for Claire and a beer for himself. "Dinner's almost ready. I hope you're hungry." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. They ate at a small kitchen table, Blake's famous spaghetti living up to Lily's hype. Conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by Lily's enthusiastic interruptions and Henry's occasional babbling. Claire found herself relaxing completely, drawn into the simple warmth of their family dynamic. After dinner, as Blake washed dishes despite Claire's offers to help, Lily appointed herself Henry's official entertainer, showing him her favorite picture books and narrating elaborate stories about the illustrations. Claire watched them from the couch, struck by how naturally Lily had taken to Henry. "She's always wanted a sibling," Blake explained, joining Claire with fresh drinks. "Emma and I had talked about having another baby eventually, but then..." His voice trailed off. "She's wonderful with him," Claire said. "Most 3-year-olds wouldn't have the patience." Blake nodded proudly. "She's got a big heart, that one, gets it from her mom." The mention of Emma prompted Claire to ask, "Do you have family nearby to help with Lily?" Blake shook his head. "My parents are in Arizona. Emma's mom visits a few times a year, but she's getting older and the travel is hard for her. Mostly it's just us, though my neighbor Mrs. Patterson is a godsend for childcare in a pinch." "It's impressive what you're doing," Claire said sincerely. "Raising her alone, working so hard." Blake looked embarrassed by the praise. "I'm just doing what any parent would do. What about you? Any family support with Henry?" Claire sipped her wine. "My parents are both gone. I have a sister in Boston, but she's busy with her own life. Brandon, Henry's father, sees him occasionally, though his schedule is unpredictable." "That must be difficult," Blake said, his expression sympathetic rather than pitying. "Having to coordinate with someone who's not fully committed. It has its challenges," Claire admitted. "But like you said, you do what you have to do for your child." Their conversation deepened as the evening progressed, moving from parenting to their own childhoods, dreams, and disappointments. Claire found herself sharing stories she rarely told anyone about losing her father in high school, her mother's battle with cancer during Claire's college years, the early struggles to establish herself in a male-dominated industry. In turn, Blake opened up about meeting Emma in trade school, their early marriage and financial struggles, his regrets about not finishing his degree when Lily was born. There was a vulnerability in his honesty that Claire found deeply attractive, so different from the calculated interactions she was accustomed to in her professional life. When Henry began to fuss, signaling his bedtime, Claire reluctantly gathered their things. "This was wonderful, Blake. Thank you for having us. We should do it again," he said, helping her with the diaper bag. "Maybe next time you could host. No pressure, but Lily's been asking to see where Henry lives." Claire hesitated, thinking of her condo with its obvious signs of wealth. "I'd like that," she said finally. "Though I should warn you, my cooking skills aren't nearly as impressive as yours." "We're not picky," Blake assured her with a smile that made her heart flutter. "Right, Lily, right," Lily agreed enthusiastically, giving Henry a gentle goodbye pat. "Bye, baby Henry, see you soon." At the door, there was an awkward moment as both adults seemed unsure how to say goodbye. Finally, Blake leaned in and gave Claire a quick, chaste kiss on the cheek. "Drive safely." The simple gesture left Claire feeling warm all the way home, where her spacious condo suddenly seemed emptier than before. As she put Henry to bed, she found herself wondering what Blake was doing, probably tucking Lily in with a bedtime story, in their cozy apartment that contained more genuine happiness than she'd felt in her own lavish home in a very long time. The following weeks brought a series of increasingly comfortable get-togethers, a Sunday afternoon at the Children's Museum, takeout Chinese food at Claire's condo, where she'd hastily removed some of the more obvious signs of her wealth, a community festival where Blake won a stuffed elephant for Lily at her ring toss booth. Each encounter deepened Claire's feelings for both Blake and Lily. She admired Blake's unwavering dedication to his daughter, his work ethic, and his ability to find joy despite financial constraints that would have left many people bitter. With him, she felt like herself, not the polished executive or the society figure her ex-husband had wanted her to be, but simply Claire, a woman and mother with her own insecurities and dreams. Blake, too, seemed increasingly attached, finding reasons to text Claire throughout the day, funny observations, questions about Henry's development, or simply to check in. He was considerate of her work schedule, never pressuring her when she mentioned late meetings or business trips, instead finding creative ways to maximize their time together. The only shadow on their budding relationship was Claire's continued evasiveness about her career. Though Blake occasionally asked about her work, she kept her answers vague, mentioning projects and clients without specifics. She told herself she was waiting for the right moment, but with each passing week, the omission felt increasingly like deception. The truth emerged on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 3 months after their first meeting at the mall. Claire was leading an all-hands company meeting when her phone vibrated repeatedly in her pocket. Normally, she would never check messages during such an important presentation, but Henry had been running a slight fever that morning, so she discreetly glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls from Blake, followed by a text. Henry's daycare called. He has a fever of 102. They need someone to pick him up ASAP. I'm at a job site without my truck. Can you get him or should I find a way? Claire's heart raced. Henry's regular nanny was on vacation this week, which was why he was at the backup daycare. She looked up at the room full of employees waiting for her direction on the company's quarterly strategy, then back at the message. I'm sorry, she announced, gathering her papers. We need to cut this short. Marcus will continue the presentation. There's a family emergency I need to handle. Without waiting for a response, Claire rushed out, texting Blake that she was on her way to get Henry. 30 minutes later, she was at the daycare, collecting her feverish son and the paperwork noting his symptoms. Claire. She turned to find Blake hurrying through the daycare entrance, his work boots muddy and his face etched with concern. Blake, how did you get here? Borrowed a coworker's car, he explained, moving immediately to Henry and placing a gentle hand on the baby's forehead. How is he? Fever, congestion, probably just a cold, but they couldn't keep him here. Claire shifted Henry in her arms. You didn't need to leave work, I've got him. Of course I came, Blake said, as if the idea of doing otherwise was inconceivable. I was worried about both of you. Claire felt a surge of emotion at his concern, at the fact that he'd borrowed a car and left work just to check on her son. Thank you, she said softly. Do you need anything, medicine, supplies? Blake asked, following her to the parking lot. I think we're okay. I just need to get him home and call his pediatrician. Blake nodded. I'll follow you to your place then. Lily's at preschool until 4, so I have time. Too preoccupied with Henry to argue, Claire led Blake to her car, strapping Henry into his seat as Blake watched with obvious concern. It wasn't until they pulled into the secure parking garage beneath Claire's luxury condominium building that Blake's expression changed from worry to confusion. A valet approached immediately to assist Claire, addressing her by name with practiced deference. Is your car service member with you today, Miss Morgan? The valet asked, nodding toward Blake's borrowed vehicle. He's with me, Thomas. He can park in my guest spot. Blake followed Claire into a private elevator that required a key card, his eyes widening as it opened directly into the foyer of her penthouse apartment. The space, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington, minimalist furniture, and obvious luxury, told the story Claire had been avoiding sharing. Let me get Henry settled first, Claire said, feeling Blake's questioning gaze as she carried Henry to his nursery. When she returned to the living room, Blake was standing by the windows, staring out at the spectacular view, his posture stiff. So, he said without turning, management in tech, huh? Claire took a deep breath. I'm the CEO of Morgan Innovations. I founded the company 12 years ago. Blake finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning? I was going to tell you, Claire said. People treat me differently when they know. I wanted you to see me, not my position or my bank account. You thought I'd treat you differently. There was hurt in his voice now. That I'd be intimidated, try to take advantage somehow. It's happened before, Claire admitted. My ex-husband, things changed between us when the company took off. What started as pride in my success turned into resentment, competition. By the end, he saw me as a checkbook, not a partner. Blake ran a hand through his hair, clearly processing this new information. I get wanting to protect yourself, but we've been spending time together for months, Claire. You've met my daughter, been to my home. I've shared everything with you, including how I struggle sometimes to make ends meet, and all this time you've been studying how the other half lives. No, Claire protested. It was never like that. I care about you and Lily. What we've shared has been real. Has it? Because from where I'm standing, you haven't trusted me with a pretty fundamental part of who you are. Blake moved toward the door. I should go. Henry needs you and I need to process this. Blake, please, Claire said, reaching for his arm. Can we talk about this? He paused, his expression softening slightly. Not today. Take care of Henry. I'll call you later. After Blake left, Claire sank onto her sofa, tears threatening. She'd handled multimillion-dollar negotiations and corporate crises with less anxiety than she felt now. Facing the possibility of losing Blake before their relationship had really begun. A cry from Henry's room pulled her from her thoughts. As she tended to her son, giving him medicine and comfort, Claire realized how much her priorities had shifted in recent months. Success had always been her driving force, proving herself in a male-dominated industry, building something lasting, securing Henry's future. But now, the thought of advancing her career at the expense of personal connection felt hollow. With Henry finally sleeping peacefully, Claire sat at her kitchen island, staring at her phone. No messages from Blake. She debated calling him but decided against it. He deserved space to process his feelings. Instead, she opened her laptop and began researching something that had been on her mind since meeting Blake: a foundation to provide scholarships and support for single parents trying to complete their education while raising children. It was something she'd considered before, but now, understanding the challenges more personally through Blake's experiences, the idea took on new urgency and meaning. 3 days passed without word from Blake. Henry's fever subsided, but Claire's anxiety grew. She threw herself into work, finalizing the details of the foundation project, which she presented to her board of directors as a new corporate social responsibility initiative. They approved it unanimously, impressed by her passion and the potential for positive publicity. On Friday afternoon, as Claire was reviewing the final documents for the foundation's establishment, her assistant buzzed her intercom. Miss Morgan, there's a Mr. Irwin here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's quite insistent. Claire's heart raced. Send him in, please. Moments later, Blake entered her office, looking somewhat out of place in his work clothes amid the sleek corporate environment. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers, clearly purchased from a street vendor. Your security team is very thorough, he said, attempting a smile. I think I was scanned for weapons at least twice. Blake, Claire said, rising from behind her desk. I'm so glad you came. He approached slowly, laying the flowers on her desk. I'm sorry I disappeared on you. I needed time to think. I understand, Claire replied. I'm the one who should apologize. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. Blake nodded, glancing around her impressive office with its awards and business magazines featuring her on the cover. This is quite a world you've built for yourself. It is, Claire acknowledged. But lately I've been wondering if it's enough. She hesitated, then gestured to her computer screen. Actually, I've been working on something I'd like your opinion on. Curious, Blake moved around the desk to look at the documents displayed there. The foundation proposal, with its mission to support single parents pursuing education. You did this? He asked, scanning the details. It's something I've been considering for a while, but meeting you gave me a clearer vision for it. Claire watched his face carefully. Your situation, trying to balance work, parenting, maybe wanting to finish your degree someday, it's a reality for so many people. They just need support and opportunity. Blake was quiet for a long moment, studying the proposal. This is amazing, Claire. It could help a lot of families. I hope so, she said softly. He turned to face her, his expression serious. I didn't walk away because you're successful or wealthy. I walked away because you didn't trust me enough to share that part of yourself. I know, Claire admitted. And that was my mistake. I've been guarded for so long with Henry's father, with colleagues who see me as competition, with people who only value what I can do for them. But you've never been like that, and I should have given you more credit. Blake's expression softened. For what it's worth, I don't care about all this, he gestured to her office. I care about the woman who sits in the park watching my daughter go down the slide 50 times without getting bored. The woman who knows exactly how Henry likes to be held when he's fussy. That's the Claire I've been falling for. Claire's breath caught at his words. Falling for. Blake smiled, stepping closer. Yeah, falling for. Pretty hard, actually. Is that going to be a problem for the CEO of Morgan Innovations? Claire shook her head, moving into his space. Not a problem at all for the CEO. But it might be the best thing that's ever happened to Claire, the mom who's been falling pretty hard too. When Blake kissed her, right there in her executive office with the Seattle skyline spread out behind them, Claire knew she'd finally found what had been missing, someone who saw all of her and wanted her anyway. 6 months later, Claire sat on a blanket in Westside Park, watching Blake chase Lily and several of her friends through the splash pad. Henry, now 14 months old and recently walking, toddled after them on unsteady legs, shrieking with delight when Blake scooped him up for a spin through the water. They're good together, observed Marcus, who was attending the casual birthday gathering with his wife and children. Blake and Henry. They are, Claire agreed, smiling as Blake now held both Henry and Lily, one in each arm, while they giggled uncontrollably. In the months since their reconciliation, Blake and Claire had built a relationship based on honesty and mutual respect. Blake had started taking night classes to finish his construction management degree, supported by Claire but insistent on covering the tuition himself with a combination of savings and a scholarship from Claire's newly established foundation. His pride remained intact, but he'd learned to accept help when it made sense. Claire, meanwhile, had restructured her work schedule to prioritize family time, delegating more responsibilities at the office and working from home 2 days a week. The company continued to thrive, and she found herself more fulfilled balancing career success with personal happiness. They hadn't moved in together yet, though they spent most nights at one another's homes. Blake was adamant about taking things slowly for the children's sake, and Claire appreciated his thoughtfulness. They were building a family intentionally, mindful of the complexities of blending lives that had been separate for so long. Miss Morgan called one of the catering staff Claire had hired for Lily's 4th birthday celebration. The cake is ready whenever you'd like. Claire nodded her thanks, then caught Blake's eye across the park. He gave her a thumbs up, understanding her silent question about whether it was time for cake. With practiced coordination, they gathered the children, Blake corralling the excited preschoolers while Claire organized the adults. As everyone sang "Happy Birthday" to an ecstatic Lily, Claire found herself surveying the gathering, a mix of Blake's construction colleagues and neighbors alongside her executive team and Henry's playgroup parents. These worlds, once so separate in her mind, had merged more seamlessly than she could have imagined. "Make a wish, Lily Bug," Blake encouraged as Lily prepared to blow out her candles. "I already got my wish," Lily announced loudly. "I wished for Claire and Henry to be my family, and now they are." A ripple of laughter and awe was spread through the crowd. Blake met Claire's gaze over Lily's head, his eyes reflecting the love and contentment she felt. Later, as they packed up the remnants of the party, Blake pulled Claire aside. "So, about Lily's announcement," Claire smiled. "Kids say the most unexpected things. Sometimes they just say what everyone's thinking," Blake replied, taking her hand. "I've been carrying this around for a couple of weeks, waiting for the right moment." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Claire's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I know it's not what you're probably used to," Blake began, but Claire stopped him with a finger to his lips. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Blake took a deep breath. Claire Morgan, I never expected to find love again, especially not after forgetting a diaper bag at the mall. But every day with you shows me that the best things happen when we least expect them. You've brought joy back into my life and Lily's, and if you'll have us, we want to be your family officially. Will you marry me? Claire didn't hesitate. Yes, she said as Blake slipped the ring onto her finger. On one condition. Blake raised an eyebrow. What's that? That you promise to always see me as just Claire, not as a CEO or whatever title comes next. Blake laughed, pulling her close. That's the easiest promise I'll ever make. You've always been just Claire to me, the woman who helped a struggling dad in a moment of need, not knowing she was about to change his life forever. As they sealed their engagement with a kiss, Lily and Henry toddled over, drawn by the emotion they sensed even without understanding it. Blake and Claire opened their arms, including the children in their embrace, a family circle complete. 1 year later, Claire stood in the small garden of Blake's newly renovated house, a modest but comfortable home they had purchased together in a family-friendly neighborhood halfway between Blake's construction office and Claire's corporate headquarters. The backyard was transformed for their wedding day, with twinkling lights strung through the trees and flowers blooming along pathways that Blake had laid himself. Nervous? Asked Claire's sister Rebecca, adjusting the simple lace veil. Claire shook her head, watching through the kitchen window as Blake helped 5-year-old Lily practice her flower girl duties while keeping an eye on Henry, now a rambunctious 2-year-old in a tiny suit. Not at all. This feels right in a way nothing ever has before. The ceremony was intentionally small family and close friends gathered to witness their commitment. When Blake saw Claire walking toward him in her elegant but understated gown, his eyes filled with tears that matched her own. Their vows, written together over late-night conversations and early morning coffee, spoke of second chances, unexpected beginnings, and the family they were creating not defined by blood but by choice and love. I never thought I'd find someone who values both my strength and my vulnerability, Claire said, her voice steady despite her emotion. Someone who sees beyond titles and expectations to who I really am. You've taught me that success isn't measured in achievements or acquisitions, but in moments of connection and joy. Blake's voice was husky as he responded. I never thought I'd love again after losing Emma, but you showed me that the heart has an infinite capacity for love. You've embraced Lily as your own, supported my dreams without diminishing them, and reminded me that family can grow in the most unexpected ways. I promise to partner with you in all things, to face whatever challenges come our way together, and to never take for granted the miracle that brought us together, a forgotten diaper bag and your willingness to help a stranger. As they exchanged rings, Lily insisted on holding both, proudly presenting them at the appropriate moment with all the seriousness a 5-year-old could muster. Henry, not to be outdone, loudly announced ring, each time drawing laughter from the guests. By the power vested in me, concluded the officiant, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Their kiss, tender and full of promise, was interrupted by Lily tugging on Blake's suit jacket. Does this mean Claire is officially my mom now? She asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. Blake knelt to his daughter's level, Claire joining him. Claire loves you very much, Lily Bug, and she'll be your mom in all the ways that matter, but we'll always remember your first mom too and how much she loved you. I know, Lily said solemnly. Mommy Emma is in heaven, but Claire is my earth mommy, and I'm Henry's big sister now, officially. Claire gathered Lily into a hug, her heart full. That's right, sweetheart, we're all family now. At the reception, held in their backyard with catering from Claire's favorite restaurant and music provided by Blake's construction colleagues' band, Claire found a moment to slip away to the quiet of their kitchen. Through the window, she could see Blake dancing with Lily standing on his feet, while Henry was passed between adoring grandparents and friends. Hiding from your own wedding, teased Mrs. Patterson, who had become a surrogate grandmother to all of them. Claire smiled, just taking it all in. Sometimes I can't believe how much my life has changed in 2 years. For the better, I'd say, Mrs. Patterson observed, following Claire's gaze to Blake, who was now looking around, clearly searching for his bride. definitely for the better, Claire agreed. I used to think I had everything figured out: career success, financial security, even parenthood. But there was this emptiness I couldn't identify until Blake and Lily filled it. Mrs. Patterson patted her arm. That's what real family does, dear. It completes us in ways we didn't know we were incomplete. Claire rejoined the celebration, sliding her arm around Blake's waist as he welcomed her back. Everything okay? He asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. Everything is perfect, she assured him. I was just thinking about how we met, how close we came to never knowing each other. If you hadn't forgotten that diaper bag. Or if you hadn't been the kind of person who helps strangers, Blake added. Maybe it wasn't chance at all. Maybe it was exactly what was supposed to happen. As the evening progressed, Claire and Blake danced under the stars. Surrounded by the family they had created together, a family built on compassion, honesty, and the courage to open their hearts to unexpected love. From a simple act of kindness in a mall food court had grown something profound and lasting, proving that sometimes the most ordinary moments can lead to the most extraordinary lives. In the years that followed, they would face challenges: Blake's business expanding while Claire's company navigated changing markets, the children growing and developing their own personalities and needs. But through it all, they maintained the foundation they had built: mutual respect, honest communication, and the unwavering belief that they were stronger together than apart. And on quiet evenings, when the children were finally asleep and they had moments alone, they would sometimes remind each other of where it all began: with a forgotten diaper bag, a CEO in disguise, and a struggling father who never imagined that helping his daughter would lead him to the love of his life.